Hi guys, Olive here. As we are rapidly approaching 2019, you have likely started to see booktubers start to compile their best books of the year lists. It's one of the most exciting times here in the community when we're all thinking back on the best books that we've read over the calendar year. I have certainly had a ton of fun compiling my lists. For the past few years, I've been splitting up my best books of the year list into fiction and nonfiction, which I have done again this year. But in prior years, I have only done the top 5 nonfiction books that I have read during that year. This year, I'm doing my top 10 nonfiction reads of the year because I have been reading more and more nonfiction since my channel got started, and I have read so many fantastic nonfiction books this year that it was impossible to narrow it down to 5. Before I get started discussing those 10 books, I need to give my yearly disclaimer that these are simply the books that I read in 2018. They were not necessarily published in 2018, and they are ranked. So I will begin talking about my 10th favorite and move all the way to my number 1 favorite nonfiction book of the year. So my 10th favorite nonfiction book that I read in 2018 was Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. This is a gritty yet refreshingly honest memoir in which Bourdain chronicles his evolution from a smartass kid to a smartass culinary professional. He shows you the business side of the restaurant industry and gives you a real sense of what it's like to work in a kitchen. I happened to be reading this memoir when it was announced that Anthony Bourdain had passed away, and I could see why everyone mourned his loss so intensely. He certainly had that chef's ego, but he also had an open mind, a forceful passion for the food industry, and a bucket load of writing talent. My next favorite nonfiction read of 2018 was The Big Short: Inside the Doomsday Machine by Michael Lewis. This book is a thrillingly written account of the lead up to the most recent financial crisis. Lewis paints the scene of the increasing risk appetite of the financial industry and shows just how much was being swept under the rug in order to fuel the rapidly growing housing market, which we know now was creating a bubble that was just itching to burst. It's a story told with a tremendous amount of skill. The author not only manages to make high finance understandable for all, but also makes this book unputdownable with how riveting it is. I couldn't wait to hear how it ended, even though I know how it ended. Next up is Smarter, Faster, Better: The Secrets of Being Productive in Life and Business by Charles Duhigg. This is the most recent book by the author of The Power of Habit, which may be my most recommended piece of nonfiction for anyone who's looking to get into nonfiction. In this book, Duhigg examines productivity and discusses some of the brain processes that can get in the way of it. And once again, just like he did in The Power of Habit, he shows his skill in describing psychological science through excitingly told anecdotes. If you're looking for nonfiction that will allow you to have fun while you're learning, look no farther than Charles Duhigg. My 7th and 6th favorite nonfiction books of 2018 actually come from the same author. I was fortunate enough this year to discover a new favorite natural history writer, Thor Hansen. Most recently, I read The Triumph of Seeds during Nonfiction November, a work that is dedicated to describing the evolution, the function, and the importance of the humble seed, and I was blown away by his ability to make the science so personable. But the first time I fell in love with his writing was when I read Feathers: The Evolution of a Natural Miracle earlier this year. It made me see feathers for the genius pieces of natural technology that they are, and showed me how ubiquitous they are, being found everywhere and on everyone, from dinosaurs to showgirls. Moving into the cream of the crop, in the 5th spot is Smoke Gets in Your Eyes and Other Lessons from the Crematory by Caitlin Doughty. This is a memoir written by mortician Caitlin Doughty, who also has her own YouTube channel called Ask a Mortician. It's her experience becoming fascinated by death at first at a young age, and eventually moving on to train to work in the death industry, specifically at a cremation facility. Through her experiences, she found herself challenging the traditional Western attitudes toward death and became an advocate for what she calls the good death, or a more natural, honest way at looking at the end that awaits all of us. I read this book directly after suffering a very big loss in my life earlier this year, and Doughty's conversational style and open way of discussing death made me feel like I had a knowledgeable friend who was helping me through a hard time. My 4th favorite nonfiction book of the year was Owl by William Service. This is an older piece of nonfiction and tells the tale of when William Service's family took in a screech owl chick that had fallen from its nest. This book is full of observations about the little bird that they just called Owl's behavior And it ranges from the endearing to the hysterically funny. More than once while reading this book, I found myself giggling uncontrollably, struggling through laughter, trying to read my favorite passages aloud to my husband. In third place comes The Curse of the Boyfriend Sweater by Elana. This is a collection of essays on the author's lifelong experience with crafting, but each essay runs a whole lot deeper than what it appears to be on the surface. An essay about making a homemade gift for a significant other becomes an examination of what it means to stake a claim in the lives of the people that we love. An essay about a long-running crochet project morphs into a feeling of unspoken gratitude that Oken has for her grandmother, who introduced her to crafting at a very young age. It's heartfelt and adorable and can be enjoyed by crafters and non-crafters alike. My second favorite nonfiction book of the year is Eggshell Skull by Bree Lee. This is Bree Lee's memoir of her time spent working for a traveling judge in Australia, handling cases of unspeakable abuse, typically toward women and children. Being confronted with case after case like this made Lee finally come to the conclusion that she wanted to pursue legal action against the man who had abused her years prior. Through her experience, Lee not only shows how a case moves through the legal system in Australia, but shows how the system is fundamentally broken and fails to protect those who need protection most. She also shows a remarkable amount of bravery and perseverance. This is an incredible and powerfully written book that I wish everyone would read. But by far, the best nonfiction book that I read in 2018 was Lab Girl by Hope Jahren. In this book, Hope Jahren lays her heart out on the page. She discusses how she became a scientist focused on plant biology. She talks about how she set up her own lab. And she talks about how she continues to better understand the world around her using a scientific lens. Throughout, she not only shares some of her scientific knowledge with us, but also gives us a deep and personal account of her struggles and successes over the years. Her struggle with bipolar disorder, her entry into motherhood, the difficulties she faces being a woman scientist, and her close yet platonic relationship with her male lab partner. Everything about this book was a breath of fresh air. It is deeply emotional, but also gleefully nerdy, since it is just overflowing with her love of science. I think about this book all the time, and it is certainly an all-time favorite now. So those were the best pieces of nonfiction that I read during 2018. I read some amazing nonfiction books this year, so it was really difficult to narrow it down to just this list. But I can say with my whole heart that I loved every book on this list and recommend them super highly. I did condense my feelings on each of these books for the sake of time, but if you would like to hear more of my thoughts on any of them, I will put links in the description box below to either my individual reviews of these books or to the specific timestamp within my monthly wrap-ups where I discuss each of them. If you have any comments or questions about anything you've seen in this video or anything in general, you can of course put that in the comment section below. Or if you'd prefer to reach out to me somewhere other than YouTube, I am on a variety of different places on social media. The links to all of my profiles are linked in the description box below. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.